What's up, guys? We've got John Tamayo here today, big-time tournament player, but he also plays a lot of stud 8 or better. And today I want to get his take on stud 8, and in particular, how no-limit hold'em players can approach stud 8 without avoiding some common rookie mistakes. So, John, why don't you explain stud 8 a little bit?
Stud 8 is a split pot game. 7-card stud, the technical name is 7-card stud 8 or better. It's a split pot game where half the pot goes to the best high hand and half the pot goes to the best low hand. And by low hand, you're taking the aces low and trying to make the worst hand per se. Because the ace is low, ace 2, 3, 4, 5 would be your best low hand. Now ace is also high for the high hand, so if you actually have ace 2, 3, 4, 5, you'll have a straight for the high and the best low. So you frequently scoop up the entire pot most of the time. And there are situations where one hand can take both sides of the pot. One of the biggest mistakes in stud 8 in starting hand selection is players playing hands that aren't very strong high hands. Like a pair of 9s, for example, is a very terrible high hand.
So the pair of 9s, you're never going to be competing for the low pot. All you've got is, kind of the start to a second best high hand, right?
Right, and people that have aces will usually have an ace in their hand for the low hand, or they might have 2 aces and they'd be going could potentially go both ways. Mm-hmm. The thing is about stud is, because it's a limit game, you're going to have to call bets starting on what we call third street, so your first 2 down cards plus your up card. And then if you go all the way to the end, you're calling on your 4th card, 5th card, 6th card, and 7th card. And in those situations, the pot bloats very quickly. So once you get past that 4th or 5th card, you'll usually be committed to the pot, depending on your opponent's board. There'll be some rare situations where your opponent's up cards will be 5, 4, 3, 2, and run out like that, and you'll have to fold, let's say, 3 kings, or just a lone pair of deuces with a worse low draw, for a 7 low draw. Mm-hmm. But generally, once you get past the 5th card, you'll go all the way to the river and seeing if you make your hand or not.
Gotcha. So you find no limit players when they play stud 8 overvalue hands like split 9s.
Or they'll even overvalue hands like split jacks. They'll have a jack up with another jack, but they won't have another high card to back up. They'll have like a 5. And the problem with the 5 is that if you make 2 pair of the jacks, that 2 pair is frequently not going to be good enough. The most common hand in 7-card stud is 2 pair.
Okay.
So if you're going to make 2 pair, you want to have a real good 2 pair. Mm-hmm. Like a hand like king, king, queen is still a pretty good hand. It's a marginal hand, but it's a playable hand.
Gotcha.
To where if you have a hand like queen, queen, deuce, and let's say a 3 has to make bring in, and then an ace completes, and then another ace re-raises, you could actually probably fold the queen, queen, deuce.
Sure. I know when I ran a lot of stud 8 numbers on third street hands, even if you have like a pair of split kings and there's an ace with 2 random cards behind you, if you're a favorite, it's really thin, and they're playing basically perfectly against your hand the rest of the way.
Yeah, and that's a big mistake that a lot of NL players do when they start playing stud 8, is they're paying attention to their hand only, and while they're playing out possibilities of what the other player could have, they don't realize that what the other player most likely has, they're in terrible shape against. Mm-hmm. Because a pair of kings is playing for only one side of the pot, where the ace is playing for one side most of the time, and then both sides the other. If they have ace 5, 4 with 2 clubs, and then let's say make a 7 of clubs on 4th Street, and they're going to be a huge favorite over just a pair of kings, because now they're almost free rolling for the low side of the pot. Knowing if they make the low, they're at least getting half the pot. Mm-hmm. So in that case, they should have the betting lead, but I see some no-limit players try to take the betting lead with just a pair of kings and an obvious pair of kings, not realizing that they're getting free rolled. One of the other mistakes is that NL players will completely ignore 4th Street cards. On 4th Street, equities do change a lot. with, let's say, two players that start with a 7 and an ace, per se. And let's say the 7 has a 5 and a 4 underneath, and the ace has a 5 and a 6 underneath, and with one suit. Let's say the ace 5-6 catches an offsuit jack, which does nothing for his hand, total brick. And let's say the our other low hand has 4 to a straight now with a low draw.
Okay.
Because the pot is so small at this point, a lot of no-limit players forget this and forget the fact that they have to call additional bets down the line to see 5th, 6th, and 7th,
and to catch runner,
and they have to and they're a card behind at this point. And because equities do change so much, they might go from having 65% equity to now 20, but the pot's not very big. There's only antes plus 2 bets in the pot.
Sure.
So, and you have to call 1 bet. Yeah, you're getting let's say 3.5, 4 to 1 on your money, but you forget the fact that you have not only you have to call 4th Street, you have to call 3 more big bets because the bets double on 5th, 6th, and 7th. So you have a reverse implied odds situation working against you where you're basically calling 3 streets to attempt to get half of the pot and get your money back.
Sure.
So instead of folding, they'll call, hoping they'll hit something. And that's really the biggest leak of no-limit players.
So be more conservative on 4th Street when you brick and your opponent improves.
Right. And if you both improve, then you could probably continue in most cases. And at that point, you'll probably continue to the river unless your opponent just catches what looks like gin card after gin card.
Yeah.